What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Well, in today's video, I wanted to go ahead and cover crypto and Bitcoin specifically, as we are getting a little bit of a relief rally with it recovering back up towards 30,500, and a lot of people are wondering slash hoping, man, was this the last capitulation? Was this the final drive to the downside before we can finally see some stability or some growth? And how can we go forward at this point to continue looking for ways to maximize our gains? Now, what we can see is that, of course, Bitcoin has completely crashed for the last 8 days, about 34% in value. Now, as that has happened, we have seen our overall capitulation candles come in, which has been a fantastic sign that we could see relief of some sort towards the upside for sure. But although that is a good thing, and although we did see that capitulation, which again does sometimes have the results of being followed by growth, similar to what we saw back here, what we need to be aware of is that while we are in times of these downtrends, relief bounces and rallies, such as the one we're in right now, happen that will fool people into thinking that this is the moment we're going back up to 70K. People start to get a little bit over optimistic, they start going long, and then next thing you know, the whales wreck them again. So what we want to focus on today is not necessarily if the bottom is in, but how to confirm the bottom is in order to minimize our risk against these whales. Our whole game plan here is to not fall into their traps. We're not going long too early. We're not shorting too much too far in order for them to then start to put in some of these relief rallies that next thing you know we end up getting liquidated by. No, we want to make sure we are looking for the right confirmations at the right time, and so that's what I'm going to go into today. So one thing that I looked at was historically, let's kind of just see some similarities and let's see some things that are happening now that we can pair back to history to say whether or not it's feasible for the bottom to be in just yet. Now, the biggest thing that I would go ahead and say is that it does seem as if we have a little bit more room left to fall. And so I am somewhat a little bit skeptical that this isn't anything but a relief rally and that we're just going to bounce a little bit here and continue to the downside, in my honest opinion. One of the biggest reasons being is just looking at this monthly MACD. And as we can see, every single time that this MACD crosses, we had a one back in December of 2018, one back right around December of 19. And then, of course, we did have one just recently. There is a pretty much a strong commonality over the last couple times in which every time that MACD crosses from that month that it crossed, let's go ahead and go back here. Boom. From that month in which it crossed, from the bottom of that month to the bottom of the fall, the capitulation that eventually does follow, we can see a loss of about 43% from November 19th to June of 2020. And then if we do put that into comparison of what we're seeing in 2018, you can see from the bottom of that month to the bottom of the market, it was about 47%. So it's usually somewhere between 42 to 48% whenever we do see that monthly MACD cross. Now, if we do bring that up to where we are now and put that in comparison, we can see that when we hit the bottom of this month in which that MACD crossed to where we are now, or where we went to, we only went down about 30%. A 45% move looks a little bit more like, $20,000, which does align with the general idea that at some point we will come back to retest the previous all-time high in which we put in last cycle. Now, not only that though, something that also does need to be considered is that we have this moving average, the 20-week moving, or the 200-week moving average, which does get interacted with more than any other moving average in the macro sense. And as you can see right now, as we did come back to retest it, this time after that MACD cross and this time after that MACD cross, that 200-week moving average is also sitting right around that 40 to 45% range. And so for that reason, I'm still have a conviction that we will visit this range between $20,000 to $22,000 now that we have set the lower low on Bitcoin itself. So for that reason, I am being extremely cautious and I am being extremely skeptical. I'm saying that I'm not convinced right now that just because we're seeing a little bit of relief, that the bottom of the market is in. And so for that reason, I'm going to now go over the confirmations I would need to see for me to be confident to say, okay, I was wrong. That was the bottom. Now we're working our way to the top side. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start with the short term. I'm going to talk about the things I need to see in the short term to start to get more confident that the bottom is in. And then as these goals are, fulfilled, then we will start to look at some long-term goals and long-term levels that will be of importance to say that we are now in an uptrend. So the biggest one in which I'm paying attention to at this given point is our 20 simple moving average and the Bollinger Bands. Now, these are going to be fantastic representations of if we are, going back into an uptrend or if we're seeing a relief rally. Now, generally speaking, if the price of Bitcoin is doing what it is now, in which it's extending to the downside of this Bollinger Band envelope, almost always, we will get the resortment back up towards the 20 SMA. And so what we need to pay attention to is the fact that as we are now at this point, at any given point, we could just see that simple relief rally back up to that 20 SMA, which at this point is currently sitting at about $36,000. And we at that point could still get capitulated and pushed back towards the downside and rejected, similar to what we saw here, what we saw here, what we saw here. We could go to history and show exactly what happens whenever we get rejected off of it. Look at this fall. Look at this fall. These rejections off the 20 simple moving average are extreme. And so for that reason, considering the fact that we are, still well within the bottom side of this Bollinger Band envelope, at any given point, again, we could come back up to revisit it. But while we are under it, I 100% would not be that confident to say that we are in a position of any magnitude to be able to work our way back up to even $40,000. Now, of course, in the event in which we do clear it, I am expecting us to revisit the top side of our Bollinger Bands, which in this example is currently sitting at about $43,000. But of course, this is going to take some time to get back up to that level and clear it and hold it. And so for that reason, I'm just going to go ahead and say that right now, if I'm just personally looking for the first confirmation to say that we have put the bottom in and that we are looking to make our way back up towards the upside, I absolutely need to see this 20 simple moving average get cleared, and I need to see us hold above it, similar to what we saw back here. If we can hold it similar to what we saw back here, that is a fantastic step, but it is just the first of many steps in which we will need to take to even get close to thinking about setting a new all-time high. Remember, macro conditions are not good right now. Inflation is not good right now. We're not at the point that we need to be for these broad markets, especially something like the NASDAQ, to be able to see some growth just yet. And so for that reason, it is very important to either be dollar cost averaging as this thing is falling, or if you're a trader and you're someone who just wants to go long and is willing and ready to make a big accumulation, I think the best thing to do is just to be patient and look for those confirmations, because at any given point, I still believe that we could see a capitulation back another 20 to 30% for Bitcoin. So for that reason, of course, this bounce does look great, and I'm very happy that we are seeing it. It's nice to finally see a little bit of green in our portfolios, but I wouldn't get too ahead of myself until we, again, at minimum get back above this 20 simple moving average. So with that said, I'm going to continue to update you guys on this as much as I possibly can. I'm going to give you guys these steps and these goals, and as they are fulfilled or as they are canceled out, I will then update you guys and let you know, hey, this is not in play. This is not in the picture. We came back and we lost $26,000. So now we need to expect, $20,000 or something of that nature. I will always keep you guys as up to date as possible. And if you do want easy access to me, if you do want access to even more streams, and if you do want access to more content, do go down to the link in the description. Go check out the Patreon, as that is where I post all of it. But with that said, that's going to be about it for today's video. And of course, I hope you guys did enjoy, and I will see you all next time. Peace.